Hey guys, Doug B here. Now last week we looked at using an acoustic electric guitar with the FX3. This week I'd like to take that a step further. What if you're playing gigs and you don't want to switch guitars between songs, but you still have acoustic songs coming up? What if you play songs that have both acoustic and electric guitar in the same song? Both Rush and Yes, just naming two band examples, both had guitars that played both acoustic and electric guitars within the same song. I remember that Steve Howe from Yes had an acoustic guitar that was mounted on a stand, and he would reach around his electric to play the acoustic. In recent years, Howe used a Line 6 Variac 600 mounted on a stand for Dan Electro's sitar, Guild 12-string, and Martin acoustic guitar sounds. Alex Lifeson from Rush also had an acoustic guitar mounted on a stand, and he too would reach around his electric to play the acoustic. In 2011, Gibson released the Alex Lifeson Les Paul Access, which had both humbuckers and a piezo. It also had a price tag of $5,500. Epiphone has recently released their version of the Alex Lifeson Access with a more affordable $899 price tag. But it still weighs in at 9 pounds, which is way too heavy for me. Paul Reed Smith released the SC Hollow Body 2 with piezo in 2021. Like the Access, it has separate outputs for the humbuckers and the piezo. Like the Epiphone version, it also has separate volume controls, but it doesn't have any switching that allows you to go between humbuckers and piezo instantly. So if, for example, you had your humbuckers running to your tube amp and the piezo running directly to the soundboard, you'd have to turn one volume knob up at the same time that you turn the other volume knob down. Not very elegant. But the Paul Reed Smith weighs under 6 pounds. Very, very comfortable. Now we have the AXFX3, and we can set up presets that take both of the pickup types into consideration, with scenes that allow you to instantly swap between humbuckers and piezo, as well as a combination of both pickup types. Let's listen to an example of how this works. The humbuckers will use in 1 and the piezo will use in 2. They'll both be using out 1 for this video. Now we could also have them using out 1 and out 2, which would give the sound engineer more flexibility at the soundboard or mixing console. Just make sure you turn up the out 2 knob on the front panel if you're going to go that route. So let's create the path for the humbuckers. It'll be fairly basic, with drive, amp, cab, chorus, delay, and reverb blocks. You don't want to make it too intense at this point because you also have to build another path for the piezo. The drive block is using the FET boost type in channel A, and this will just be used in the solo scene. Amp block is using the Plexi 100 watt 1970 in channel A, and we set the bypass mode to mute. I'll show you why in a minute. The cab 1 block is using the 4x12 basket weave G12 M25 from the Legacy Bank, and it's also using a 4x12 Brit BB 160 ML from the Factory 2 bank. Those are both in channel A. Chorus is using Warm Stereo in channel A. Delay is using Ambient Stereo in channel A. And the reverb block is using the Studio type in channel A. So we'd save that as scene 1, call it Humbuckers. Let's hear how it sounds. The second path for the piezo will use a comp block, cab block, graphic EQ, and then we'll join the humbuckers path at the reverb block. Now I could add the looper block because it makes it easier to work with the other blocks without having to handle the guitar at the same time. Like I mentioned last week, you'd play a little riff or some chords while recording with the looper. Then you can put your guitar away and play the riff using the looper while you work in the cab 2 block, auditioning different acoustic guitar IRs. Like I showed you last week, you can use acoustic guitar IRs to get you a lot closer to real acoustic guitar tones, much closer than just using the piezo on its own. This week I'm using the 61 J4557V PZ1 acoustic IR from Worship Tutorials. I'll put a link in the description. The comp block uses the Studio FF Compressor 1, set to default. We'll set the bypass mode to mute out. The graphic EQ block is flat for the time being, but you know, at different venues or for different recordings, you might want to adjust things, but you should always start out with it flat first and then go from there. Now, it takes some time to dial it in, but with a little bit of luck, you get to have a really good sounding acoustic tone. Now, we'll save this as scene 2, calling it Piezo. We bypass the amp block in this scene, which mutes the humbucker audio. And then when we go to scene 1, we mute the compressor, which mutes the audio from the piezo. Remember, bypass is set to mute for both the amp and comp blocks. That way we can easily switch from acoustic to electric and vice versa by changing scenes. Okay, let's see how the piezo sounds. Now there are still 6 scenes left in this preset after the humbuckers and piezo scenes. Of course, you don't have to use them, but you could, for instance, set up another scene that has the output from both the humbuckers and the piezo dialed in. I did that for scene 3. Scene 3 is called Both. The only thing that's muted is the drive block. I also created a solo scene in scene 4 that uses the drive block and then mutes out the piezo. You could also create a scene that has a rotary block, for example, maybe another that puts a chorus on the acoustic path. There are still a lot of options to choose from. Now there's still lots of room for tweaking and improving, but since this preset only uses a little bit more than 50%, look, it's, see, 51, 54, it hovers between 50 and 55%, you can still push it a lot harder with more involved scenes. Now let's play the 2-minute song that I wrote for this video, and we'll see how this preset sounds. We'll use the FC controller to switch instantly from scene to scene. So there you have it, guys. Now, if you have an acoustic electric guitar that has separate outputs for the magnetic pickups and the piezo pickup, you can have an awful lot of fun with it and your Axe FX3. You don't need to carry an extra guitar, you don't have to mount it on a stand, and you don't have to reach around your electric guitar to play the acoustic guitar. Now I know that at least one of you guys out there is using this exact setup in a Rush tribute band. Leave a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on this. Now next Wednesday, I'll be looking at a brand new preset of the week. You don't want to miss that, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. All right, guys, see you next Wednesday.